Thank you very much for being with us today, Katharina.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to dive right into an opening lightning round question. You know, it's the afternoon. Some of us might be sluggish. So we're going to make sure we're all on our toes. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all and 10 being completely, how much has the AI and the corresponding energy boom changed your job?
Looking at my industry, I would say 6 to 7.
Okay. So let's dive deeper into that. What are you doing today that you weren't doing a year or two ago?
So today, AI and digitalization is helping us in a lot of different ways. For example, if you get to recipes for concrete to get the optimized characteristics for concrete for a special project, you use AI. If you think about everything that has to do with sustainability, that's obviously very close to my job. We use a lot of data analytics in terms of getting to the right reporting, in terms of understanding where our emissions are. But that obviously needs data quality, and in companies, in very old companies and very traditional companies like my one, this is a long way to go, and this is why I was saying it's a 6 to 7. I think there's still a lot of opportunity in this.
I think people forget. I mean, of course, most of the focus in our world of energy and climate has been on the energy use, but of course, we need to build all of these, data farms inside something, and that something is cement.
Yes. Actually, the truth is, cement is, after water, the second most used material on the planet. And everything you see is cement. Yeah? If you look out of the window, if you walk a street, if you look at bridges, all of that is cement. So this is why, and it's around 8% of global carbon emissions. So this is why it's a very important task to really work on the decarbonization.
So I had the pleasure of actually visiting one of your cement plants in Norway. And I understand there's been some interesting happenings there. Why don't you tell us?
Yes. Actually, Amy visited Brevik in Norway. Brevik is the first industrial-scale carbon capture plant in the cement industry that we inaugurated in June. I can tell you, it is a very, very spectacular setup because you have this old cement plant, and cement plants are rusty, dusty. It's kind of low tech, if you want so, and next to it you have what basically is a chemical plant, which is shiny, complicated, high tech. And there, since June, we are able to capture the carbon from the process. So actually, when you produce cement, 1/3 of the carbon is from energy that we use, and 2/3 are out of the process itself. And what we do is we produce the regular cement, capture the carbon, and then store it in the Northern Lights project under the North Sea.
Not the actual Northern Lights. That would be a novel innovation.
Actually, Northern Lights is a carbon capture and storage project which is under the North Sea.
So that was interesting when you say, I think many of us are used to carbon emissions coming from something like oil, natural gas, or coal, but in this case, it's the actual chemical process that cement is made.
Yes.
To make cement. So what are the types of technologies? So you mentioned carbon capture. Are there other types of technologies that you and other companies are considering to try to bring that down?
Clearly. So basically, if you want to produce cement, what you do is you burn limestone. And when you burn limestone at around 1,500 degrees, a lot of CO2 gets out. So this is where it actually comes from. So we basically run the regular cement process and then capture the carbon. But before that, obviously, we are working on a lot of other levers to get those emissions down before you get to the carbon capture and storage process. And there are 2 major levers that most of the cement companies around the globe work on. One is alternative fuels. So instead of coal, we are using alternative fuels as much as we can, and we do have plants that run 100% on alternative fuels. And the second is so-called secondary cementitious materials, which is, instead of limestone, you use waste materials, which eventually can lead to the same characteristics of the cement. And if you use both of these levers to a very high degree, you can reduce carbon emissions by up to 50%, but the rest stays. And I think for the rest, the ultimate measure is carbon capture and storage. But in comparison, obviously, carbon capture and storage is far more expensive. So you need to make sure that all the other levers you really have used as much as you can.
I want to shift to expenses and costs and things like that.
Yes.
A pretty important equation, increasingly so, I would say, in today's conversation. You know, we hear from some Trump administration officials that Europe is not as competitive as the United States, partly due to higher energy prices. So how is your company ensuring that prices of cement don't go up much, if at all, even when you're being more sustainable?
That's a very interesting point, Amy. So first of all, if you look at the history of cement, has a comparably stable price, and it's a very, very local product. So you do not transport cement further than, let's say, 100 kilometers, which is great because topics like tariffs don't really have an influence on cement.
That's good. That must be one less problem for you to have to worry about.
That's true. Now, the measures that I was talking about before, alternative fuels and secondary cementitious materials, do not necessarily mean that cement gets more expensive. Actually, in some countries, it does get cheaper. For example, the topic of alternative fuels, that's often waste that otherwise would go in landfills, and that can make the cement to a certain degree cheaper, or at least we can keep the price levels. Carbon capture and storage as the ultimate way to get to a net carbon zero cement, that obviously does make it more expensive because the process is more expensive, and this is why I said it's important to make sure that all the other levers are used as far as we can.
So on the data center boom in particular, can you talk to us about, you know, in generalities if needed, but some of your customers or potential customers in the tech sector, are they willing partners to use cleaner cement or perhaps pay for the cost of capturing that carbon from cement?
So first of all, I think we need to realize that if you think about something like a data center, the cement is a very, very important part of the life cycle carbon emissions. Because if you think, first of all, the energy demand is the biggest chunk of the emissions that they have. But if the energy has turned to either renewables or nuclear, and the emission have gone down, then from what is left, 50% of the life cycle carbon emissions of a building are actually the embodied carbon. And from this embodied carbon, so from the 50%, half is the cement. So it's actually, the cement itself is a very, very big lever. Now, if you look at, if you take net carbon zero or near zero cement, and it's more expensive, if you look at the total investment of the project, the price does increase, but only a low one-digit number. So in comparison to the whole project, the price increase is comparably low, and it does come with a lot of positive effects. And one that is very obvious is that you get cheaper loans if you build green. Dependent on the kind of financing.
Is that still the case here in the United States as well?
We will have to see how that develops. So the truth is we are selling the Evo, so we call it Evo Zero cement, basically since 3 months. So we will have to see how that develops. We are working with banks on exactly that topic.
And banks in the United States as
yes,
well as Europe?
Both. And we will see how to what we get there.
Are you seeing appetite from data center developers to use this greener cement?
Yes, we do. Looking at a lot of the data center developments, I think everybody's searching for all different kinds of levers to really reduce carbon emissions due to the very high carbon footprint. And so obviously it comes to the building materials as well.
And I guess what I'm trying to get at is that it sounds like you're still seeing interest from
yes,
this industry, even though there's not a federal government
yes,
pressure on that point.
That is true.
So can you take us like inside the room of some of these conversations, leaving out names, but I think we would find it interesting if you could share a little bit more about how these conversations go. Do you suggest to them the new product is one that's been on the market for 3 months? Or is it something, because all of these companies we know, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they're leaders in the sustainability space. So is it sort of a mutually agreeable conversation?
So first of all, I think what we see is that all of these tech companies hold their targets and really fight for reducing carbon emissions. Now, the interesting part in our case is that cement has been a commodity for the last, 100 years. And the typical customer of a cement company is a tier 1 to tier 3 construction company, so not necessarily a data center company. And for us, it's very interesting times because we are establishing completely new relationships to these companies, including the fact that we have to make it more public that this product is available. And that goes via construction companies, via project companies that actually work with the tech companies on these projects. And we do talk to the tech companies themselves as well. And I think taking into consideration that they are going through all levers that they have, they eventually get to the point that they try to bring carbon emissions of building materials down. And this is when you eventually will get to us, since we are the pioneering ones for net carbon zero cement.
Speaking of that, I want to kind of go back into the big picture of climate tech. Typically the way we think about things is we have companies like yours that have been around a long time and leaders in the space, and then you have startups that are
Yes.
pioneering new technologies. How do you see these startups? Do you see them as potential acquirer targets? Do you see them as competitors? Do you see yourselves as partners?
Nice question. First of all, I think the whole topic of the startups is they are very, very helpful because they have easier processes to drive innovation forward, and they are faster. I think the part that is missing is the ability to globally scale. So our company is in more than 50 countries around the world. So if we want to scale a technology, for us, it's comparably easy. And I think this is why the combination of technologies from startup and the global companies that are able to scale these innovations globally, that's what makes it really powerful. So we are directly working with some of these startups. We are always scouting startups and looking into the space, what's happening in the building materials sector. We are doing innovation challenges to find new ideas and to be able to cooperate and partner, and that way scale it faster.
That's so interesting, and I would love to keep in touch on that, Katharina, because in the energy climate space, you haven't seen as much big companies acquiring the new startups. That hasn't happened yet. We'll see if it does happen. We are in our final moments, so I want to conclude with a lightning round game of Would You Rather.
Oh, nice.
So,
that sounds dangerous. Yeah.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Would you rather partner more with government or other corporations?
We need both.
But if you had to choose, if you had to choose just one, which one would you choose?
So since 50% of our customers are governmental projects, it would be government.
And don't worry, this is completely on the record, so no, I'm just kidding. Would you rather spend an hour in Climate Week and UNGA traffic or 45 minutes on the subway?
45 minutes on a subway.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer. It's a trick question to see who hates the subway, which is more people than I have been surprised to find. Would you rather have an AI model that always agrees with you or always pushes back on you?
Always pushes back.
Would you rather see the past or change the future?
Change the future.
Okay, well, with that, thank you very much, Katharina.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy.